Good Friday afternoon and evening, wherever you may be. Thanks for joining us live today. We're back after skipping a week while Victor was shooting his new movie out in LA. Right?
Yep. That's precisely what I did, yes.
When's that releasing?
So
Do you remember?
nobody knows. Huh?
Oh, okay. When's that movie supposed to release? 2038?
I'm under NDA. Cannot talk about
You're
it.
in NDA. Okay. Hi, by the way. My name is Darren Pope. This over here is Victor Farsuk, and we are the co-host of a podcast called DevOps Paradox. And gee, go figure, we named this live stream DevOps Paradox Live. We do these typically on Fridays. Again, we missed last Friday, and we were actually talking about this week. As the world comes back to more normal, our schedules become less static since we now leave the house. So we'll see how this all plays out over the year. I don't see us changing anything anytime soon, but don't be surprised if there's gaps that happen here and there. By the way, grab your drink. It is Friday. It is time to start drinking. I have my vintage, what do I have today? I have my vintage lime today. Get my face out of there again. My vintage lime from Lidl. Karen, good to see you today. Thanks for joining us live here. I am not sure if he's here, but one of our normal birthday boys, or one of our normal people today is his birthday. Today is Vladislav's birthday. So Vladislav, if you're here, happy birthday. Thanks for everything that you do for us. And by the way, Vladislav is still hiring.
That's permanent.
I think it is. I really think it is, just because I think he's always hiring. So it's a joke, but not really. So go look up Vladislav on LinkedIn.
I have impression that's for almost every company now, kind of like permanently hiring. I'm yet to find a company that is not hiring.
But the question is, they may be hiring, but are they actually hiring any people?
Yeah.
Different conversation. Which We're actually recording a podcast about that next week. We're actually going to talk to a recruiter. They're actually human people, right? They're not just AI bots.
They're human?
They are human.
Then why are they sending messages on LinkedIn that sound anything but human?
That's what we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
And you're actually looking at the camera today. I just noticed that.
Yeah, look at me. Looking at the camera. I don't know how long I will manage to do that, but hey.
You're doing good. I'm proud of you. Let's get into the news, because there's a lot of it sort of piled up over 2 weeks. So let me share the right screen. That is not the right screen. There we go. Wait, that's not what I wanted either. There we go. It's one of those days. I guess I could have used my buttons to do that too. Podcast this week. I actually listened to it today while I went to the dentist today. And they said,
Okay.
It looks like you might have a cavity. And I went, okay. I went, can I get a second opinion on that? That was the hygienist. And she went back in and was like, oh, no, it's not there. I went, okay, good. No cavity. So cavity free. My daughter, born in 93, she has never had a cavity. Never.
I wish I could say the same.
I wish I could say the same too. By the way, I still have my wisdom teeth. That doesn't mean I'm wise, but I still have my wisdom teeth. Timon, good to see you.
In your
Thanks for joining
mouth
us.
or?
In my mouth, yes. Not in a jar.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe you preserved it in fertile or whatever.
No, I still have them. But anyway, I listened to this on the way back from the dentist today. And do we still need to know how to code for DevOps? And the short answer is
yes, with 7 exclamation marks, right?
yeah, pretty much. You need it, even if you don't know how to do what we'll call normal languages, you need to know Bash at least, or whatever the scripting language is of your OS. That's bare minimums. So if you haven't taken a listen to this yet this week, podcast always comes out on Wednesdays at 6 a.m. Eastern, noon CET. So you can always take a lunch break while you're over sitting having a coffee. Do you have coffee at lunch? I don't understand the.
If
or is
I'm
that the
eating
afternoon
out,
thing?
yes.
Okay.
No. Whenever I eat out, I have coffee. When I eat at home, don't, because that requires additional work, which I'm not Prepare to invest.
Okay. So let's get into some more congratulations. We've already congratulated Vladislav on his birthday. One more trip around the sun. Also announced this week was the DevOps Dozen, and under category 4 for the best DevOps related podcast is not us.
The one and only.
Not us. Dan Pop. Congratulations to Dan on winning this most prestigious award. By the way, we want to win this award next year. So once this stuff opens up, we're going to be probably a little... How can we say this?
Are you suggesting that we might by next year we might figure out how marketing works? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. But
Okay,
I am
so-
suggesting that it would be nice to win an award. Just to say that we did, and then we'll go back to being just oblivious all the time. Does that work?
There you go.
Okay. So anyway, and there was actually quite a few, if you're not, again, all the links to everything we're looking at today will be down in the show notes later today, tomorrow morning, whenever I get to them, but they'll be there on YouTube, and also on the website. So all that's linked up. But there's a lot of interesting things here. Some of them, most of them I had heard of, but there were a few that I hadn't. The one that I thought was most interesting, and I'm not going to be mean. The best DevOps related video series was a DevOps series for IBM Z.
I promise that I will not swear in live shows, so I will say nothing.
Just
I mean,
saying.
come on.
Just saying.
I'm sorry, especially I know people over there, but at least give a semblance of giving awards for real. Try to fake it at least a bit.
It's okay. Yes, we do know people over there, so that's the reason why we're just we're being nice because we would like to win next year. So, one more piece of congratulations. Our friends at LitmusChaos graduated to incubating out of Sandbox.
It's amazing, well deserved. Litmus is really good, and I see Litmus kind of skyrocketing in front of others in last year or two. Really doing well.
I have an opinion of why I think that is. I agree with you, but I just think they're the only ones that have enough bodies working on it. I think it's as simple as that.
Because it is within that domain, within that area, that's probably the one that has the most external contributors.
Yeah.
Right? That's the problem and the advantage of open source, right? You're investing in open source for quite some time, and you're wondering why nobody contributes, and then whether your investment as a company is worthwhile and stuff like that. And most open source projects continue like that forever. But if you succeed, if you manage to make it really interesting, and if you manage to get contributions, then the rewards are there.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get contributions outside of the company who starts open source project, just to clarify. Very hard, but rewarding if you do.
Yeah. Christopher, thanks for joining us today. Corey, thanks so much. Inspiring, sort of scary. But yeah. And Red Sab, yes, says, don't hate on main. Hey, I'm not hating on mainframe. There's a lot of money that goes through mainframe. If you had to guess of the world economy, how much of the fractions of pennies go through a mainframe?
I know. I have absolutely nothing against mainframe. I'm just surprised that the DevOps mainframe something from IBM is considered the most innovative DevOps tool for a
Video
year.
series. Video series was what that one was.
Was it video series?
Yeah. Video
Okay,
series.
then my bad. I haven't seen the video series,
Yeah,
so it must be
and
awesome.
I haven't either.
I thought it is kind of like the DevOps tool.
Oh,
stuff.
no.
Okay, cool.
It was a video series. And now the video series may be
Okay.
very good, right? It could
Oh,
tell
yeah.
a great story and whatever, but
Exactly.
I haven't watched it.
So,
but still.
taking back everything I said, misunderstood.
Okay. And you were just going on about open source there for a few moments. And
Yes,
how
I were.
Yeah. So that actually leads us into our next video. I don't know if anybody has watched this video from Dave Farley that came out this week, where he was talking about the problem with open source. And the basis for this video was around the NPM debacle with Colors and Faker that happened a week and a half ago, I believe, somewhere that week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And Dave goes into the reasons, or not necessarily the reasons why, but talking about Merrick, who is the author of both Faker and Colors, and the things that he did, and then how people open themselves up by just pulling in things that are, give me this version or greater. And when the author decides to create a greater that then breaks all of your code, really, it's not Merrick's problem, it's your problem.
I mean, what if that wasn't what happened? And imagine a situation in which the author made a new release that simply contains a really nasty bug. So kind of imagine that it wasn't a malicious intent, that he didn't want to prove whatever he wanted to prove, but simply there is something bad in that, right? Unintentionally. The same situation would happen, right? The result would be still the same. And the problem in then, that means that you cannot just say, I'm going to use latest. You cannot consider yourself serious in something and say, I'm going to use the latest version and push it directly to production, no matter which changes are there. I mean, breaking changes, not breaking changes, bugs, not passed. I don't test anything. I just push directly to production. That's just silly.
Yep. So one of the reasons, obviously that was a big story over the past couple of weeks, but I wanted to bring another side of this story that wasn't related to that author, but to a different author. Now, this is Ben Johnson. He was the creator of BoltDB, which has now been archived as a project. And currently Ben's working on Lightstream. If you haven't looked at Lightstream, you should go check it out. But this tweet that Ben made this week, so apparently a poor design decision I made on BoltDB in 2013 apparently took down Roblox. I'm assuming that's a gaming platform. That's what it looks like to me.
Oh, that's what my daughter is on all the time.
Yeah,
I know it well.
I don't have kids that young, so I don't know that. But it was down for 3 full days last year. And it's like, I'm sorry to all the folks at Roblox and HashiCorp for this. Now, the link over to their postmortem is actually a very good and a very long read. But the TLDR of it is HashiCorp console uses BoltDB under the hood. So there wasn't anything malicious in this. There was a design decision. Once something gets to a certain fire hose level, I guess, moving from a garden hose to a fire hose to a, whatever's beyond a fire hose, then the underpinnings, the foundations start to crumble as well. And, even though Ben had archived it, hasn't worked on it in years, he still took what I consider a very interesting take on it. It's like, based on some of my poor design decisions, sorry, right? And even though it's been 8-9 years.
So it's been 8-9 years since he made the last release.
I don't remember if it's that long for BoltDB or not, but the decision, design decision happened in 2013.
Yeah.
So, this read is a very, very long read, and they go through. They got charts, they've got all sorts of stuff, and they break it all down. It's a very, very interesting read. This is one to where you don't want to have an adult beverage with you. This is one that you need to sort of sit there and digest. But I thought it was really interesting. So unlike the Merrick thing, now I'm not going to get to the pros and cons of, as an author, do what you want to do. If you're doing it with malicious intent to harm, look, I'm not going to go there. But it was refreshing to see the other side of this. For somebody that hadn't worked on a project in years and still say, okay, sorry y'all.
I mean, even that previous example with NPM, that guy, I just heard what you told me, Darin, but I understood that somebody probably see a project with a single committer, and that single committer decided to do something he shouldn't. I think that that's extremely useful for the industry. It shows some very useful lessons learned that we can get from it, right?
Yeah, it should be a wake-up
Not
call.
use latest. Do
Yeah.
not depend on projects that are single-person projects, right? And if you do, make sure that you use a specific version, and so on and so forth, right? If that probably, I cannot say it couldn't happen, but it would be much harder for something like that to happen if that was one of the CNCF projects that have well-established contributors, who does what is the chain of command, and who approves and stuff like that, right? There is simply a huge difference between tiny little projects and projects that are serious in foundations, right? Managed by independent entities and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it was a wake-up call. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people just keep on doing what they're doing and just forget that it ever happened. I mean, there'll be the initial knee-jerk reaction by management for the next month, and then it'll just go back to business as usual.
Yeah, and that problem is easily solvable. I'm guessing that vast majority of people, when they saw the problem, they just checked kind of like, okay, so what's the release that we have right now? Okay, done yesterday, let's go back to the previous version, and that's it.
Yeah. And Red Sub says, also archive the package versions you use. You should have everything. You should not be pulling from the public. When you're building, you should not be pulling from the public registries. You should be pulling. You should have an internal mirror.
Mirrors are so easy to set up. I mean, I think that most of the services are offering it out of the box, so there is no excuse not to use a mirror.
Yep. Before we move on, let's go ahead and take Corwin's question here. As a junior DevOps, should I do the MIT course on distributed systems, or is that overkill? If it's free, I would do it. I'm assuming it is. It's like the Stanford and MIT courses, right? Just you're not going to hurt yourself by learning something new.
Absolutely. Kind of. I don't know the course in question, right? So I can't
it's
say whether
distributed,
it's great or no.
whatever this one is, and I haven't taken any of them, so it's.
When you're junior, that's what distinguishes you from other people who have no experience. Courses. Later in life, it will not matter that much. But at the very beginning, do as many as you can. Oh, is it me or I don't hear you?
No, I'm muted. I was muted.
Even you make mistakes with sound sometimes.
I make lots of mistakes.
I caught you.
I make lots of mistakes. Anyway, Maz, happy Friday. Let's answer this question too. What about container images? Should I push the Nginx image to your own container registry? Absolutely yes.
Absolutely not.
Give me a break.
No. You shouldn't be pushing images to your own container registry. You should just go through your container registry, mirror, the container registry fetches it. So don't do additional work to make that happen, because it's so easy to set up pass-through. I'm
going to caveat that. I agree that it should just be a pull-through, but it shouldn't just be a raw pull-through. You should be, anything you're pulling from the outside world, even if it's the verified, the trusted, the official, the whatever it is, especially if it's coming from Docker Hub, I can't remember all, they just gave a new one recently. You still need to scan that image from a security perspective.
Exactly.
And if you can't get, because of your networking and everything else, if you can't put that in a DMZ to where things can actually naturally flow through, but instead you actually have to pull it, do things to it, and then you have to push it into your local registry, then that might be your mechanics of having to do that. Preferably, though, you would just do a pull-through.
I know one component made the mistake of pulling through, right? Mirroring, stuff like that, but always latest. So basically continuously overwriting whatever was there before, right? Which is pointless. So just, pull through, push, be specific always, never latest.
Yeah.
So if you have that history, right? Kind of like, this is what I was running yesterday. this is what I'm running today.
Yeah, anything that's in your internal registries, in my opinion, you should never see a latest tag anywhere in the quote-unquote production registries.
Yeah.
Right. You might have a scratch
Production,
registry, yeah, but any bits are going to end up in a running environment, and production isn't your only production environment. Hint, hint. Staging is a production environment. QA is a production environment.
But that's a question. I saw a couple of registries so far, or images so far, that don't have latest. And it was initially frustrating. Hey, I just want to try out this new thing, right? And then it doesn't work. And I need to go and specify the tag. But then kind of it clicked to me. Actually, that might be the way to go. Let's just stop offering latest. As software vendors, right? Or project maintainers or whatever. Let's just not have latest, and then we don't tempt people.
Death to latest.
Yeah.
Latest must die, to steal from KK's polling must die post.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's probably something there. And Karen, typically, this is true. Most of them refer to images in public repos. Yes, you need to change that.
I mean, I'm assuming that this comment refers to YAMLs that you download from third parties, something, right? Of course. I mean, they cannot not point to public because they wouldn't work out of the box.
Right.
You need to change it, yeah.
Yep, and what RedSeb says here, the Helm charts usually have a value for your registry. So it's...
Yeah, image registry or something like that.
Yeah. Again, it's one thing when you're just testing something out, tire kicking it, but once you're actually operational with something, I guess that's the better way of saying production. If it's operational, then you need to be completely inside complete control that you have, period.
Yeah.
Just otherwise you're going to have this problem that potentially happened with Merrick.
I would rephrase it slightly. I would say once you move from temporary to permanent environments, whatever that is, staging, integration, whatever is permanent, that's when you need to worry about those things. Temporary, like, I get a namespace to play around, or I have, I don't know, kind
Doesn't
in
matter.
my laptop. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
Yep. Yeah, that is the better way to say it. If it is a permanent environment. But see, if people are doing the right thing and they're using immutable infrastructure, nothing's permanent. So we probably have to workshop that
No,
one just a
environment
little
is
bit more.
permanent. Servers in that environment are not, but
environment, okay.
stays.
Okay,
You
so
don't
that's
destroy
it.
staging, right?
Correct. So it's the environment. Once you have a permanent environment for X, then you've made that decision. Okay. Hello, how are you doing? Hopefully you're having a good weekend.
Hey.
Ankit? I'm sorry. I believe that's right. I'm having a hard time seeing.
Probably.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Introducing ephemeral containers. This is something that is coming in beta in Kubernetes 1.23. And it boils down to, did I go past it? No, not yet. What are ephemeral containers? A new type of container, part of Core API, that can be added to an existing pod for administrative actions, like debugging, runs until it exits, and then it doesn't get restarted.
Exactly.
I think this is cool, right? But you were saying this isn't anything like this is sidecar-ish. I think the difference though is sidecar isn't in the same pod, right?
There are solutions and I mean you can modify the pod, right? You can add a container to the pod. You can remove that container from the pod. There are solutions. I mean, half of debugging tools for Kubernetes are you doing something similar, right? So we have those things for a while now, but not as part of Kubernetes. And it's really nice that this is now part of spec of Kubernetes, and that's absolutely awesome and absolutely necessary. And finally, I'm very often lazy, so I want to do the right thing, but I also don't want to have too much work. So my images are usually based on Alpine because it's very lightweight, but I can still kind of like jump into that container and install if I need something, right? I don't have anything out of the box, but I can install stuff. Now, with this, there is no excuse not to use Scratch image as a base image.
That's what I was thinking. And the way this is going to work is it's going to go through kubectl debug or kubecontrol or kubectl. That was a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, you can debug that, and then you would just add in this image, and off you go.
Absolutely awesome.
So they are, it's available as 123, which has, 123 just shipped, right? A month ago, 2 months ago, whatever it was, but it's
something like
recent.
that, yeah.
But they're working on improving kubectl debug. So you can try it out, have fun with it. And that's the first I'd heard of it. Had you heard of it before? In
No,
this form? Okay, all right.
No, in kind of being part of Kubernetes, no.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how that one went under the radar so much, because this is a really useful thing, especially from a debug perspective.
I mean, the things that are in alpha stages in Kubernetes, they are now very low profile.
That's true.
Before it wasn't the case because, hey, we are missing so many crucial things that, hey, I'm going to use alpha of ingress, right? Now it's mostly unnoticed until it reaches beta. And beta in Kubernetes is almost like production ready.
Yep.
It's not really production ready, but it's already went through a lot of stages to get there.
Right. Okay. PayPal put out a blog post yesterday talking about scaling Kubernetes to over 4,000 nodes and 200,000 pods. And anytime you get into these scaling discussions, it's always interesting. Now, much like the Roblox page, this one's really long. But I had forgotten about a few of the things about Mesos. They still run a lot of stuff on Mesos today at PayPal, but unlike Apache Mesos, which can scale up to 10,000 nodes out of the box. Now, where is Mesos now? Do you remember?
It's completely irrelevant how much Mesos can scale. That things do not scale.
It's in the attic. It's in the attic.
Exactly.
Now. It's literally in the Apache attic.
Yeah. But okay, it's a good comparison. Okay, so kind of like
Yeah.
we had this in the past. Yes.
Yeah. But then they go through how they did this and where they ran into problems, where they started throttling when they ramped. This is a really good read. If you're having to build, I wonder if Carlos has seen this yet. You should send this to Carlos.
Sanchez. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was funny though, is like the scheduler can support a high throughput rate of up to 1,000 pods per second. Doesn't mean they're running yet, but then they got into etcd, which barfed a lot. I mean, this is it's interesting how they went through all the data here. So if you're thinking about trying to scale to 10,000 Raspberry Pi, how much would that cost? $50 a piece.
Yeah.
About $50. So 50,000. I don't remember what I said. Did I say 1,000?
That's half a million.
10,000. Oh yeah,
yeah. 50,000. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not going to do that. Okay. But anyway, PayPal is this was a good post because I normally don't think this large anymore. So going from 4,000 nodes down to MicroShift, which this appears to be the Red Hat answer or the OpenShift answer to K3s. That's what it feels like.
It's Red Hat realizing the importance of Edge.
I think everybody is underestimating Edge right now, except for just beyond the network layer. I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be seeing. I don't know how to put this. It's
still, when we talk about Kubernetes and Edge, we are still talking in majority of cases about future investments, not really present tense reality, right? We are still far-fetched from having fridges that run Kubernetes and things like that, but getting there, yeah. So it's not kind of like, hey, you're late to the game.
Right.
Not at all. Just realizing the importance of it.
I think you're in the first 10 to 15%. Oh, you got to go? Okay. So go ahead. No, that's fine. So as Victor rolls away for a moment, they're currently working on MicroShift. obviously, we've got a Raspberry Pi Model 4 here, which is probably what I'm going to add in a few more here just to test them out for not just this, but other projects. And I don't know, if you're not working and looking at Edge and what Edge means to you and your company, it's going to become more interesting over the next couple of years, I think. But anyway, so that's what it is. MicroShift, don't say that fast. Explorative project created by the Edge computing team within Red Hat's Office of the CTO. So the goal is to tailor OpenShift for field deployed device use cases. So field deployed, it could be a Raspberry Pi that's running in a truck or some other board, just a system on a board. It's getting to be more and more interesting. So anyway, that is that. Especially if you're in the OpenShift space, having a MicroShift probably makes a lot more sense. Got a handful of tools here. Secrets Manager. This is one that I found last week, I believe, and it gives you the ability to store secrets within a repository. You might say, okay, why would I do that? I mean, there's other ways to do that. The secrets are encrypted at rest with readable keys and editable JSON, so you can rename it and do everything by hand. That's usually what you can't do with secrets. So the way you'd set it up is much like how you interact with Git, or at least in that same vein, in a init file or in a init command or create command, and then env to see everything. So if I want to create a new secret, I would say create, give it a name, give it the value, and then it has created it. And then the JSON where it's stored is right here. So again, it looks to be pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You may or may not have an example or use case for this, but just in case you do, this might be another tool for you to consider. This one was interesting, Go Switchboard. I run into this a lot. When I have files, I download lots of files. I deal with a lot of media files. I deal with, obviously, doing a bunch of stuff with Jenkins. And sometimes I've just got artifacts laying around that didn't end up going to an artifact repository just because. But I don't want those files just to be all over my disk. What Switchboard allows you to do, and there's a pro version of it as well, which actually has not shipped at this point. They're working on it. I don't know what the difference is going to be. But it is open source. So what you do, and he sets it up really well here in this paragraph. Do you ever get annoyed that your downloads folder gets cluttered with all types of files? Do you wish you could automatically organize them into separate organized folders? That's what Switchboard's for. So you point Switchboard at a folder, you give it a config file, and then you walk away. So anytime you drop a file in that folder, then it gets put wherever you want it to go. So, and this isn't anything new, by the way. This is a very long time thing. Now, I do have a small beef with it. Well, actually, no, it was flipped around. Because in his picture I saw earlier, did I misread it? I did misread it, okay. I thought I saw a watch up front, but I was wrong. But anyway, so what you can do is you can set up a config file for it. In this case, I'm going to watch downloads, and then I'm going to movies over here. You also want to use absolute over relative. That sort of makes sense. And that's it. Once you start it up, it's going to be observing the downloads folder for any MP4. Once it finds it, then it's going to move the file to the movies folder. This is if you're just doing one, but if you're going to be doing multiples, okay. There's some other important notes here that you may have to take care of, but again, nothing too huge. So that's Switchboard. And again, I've seen versions of this in the past. I can't remember the names of them because it's been a few years. But this is pretty cool, and it's just one guy working on it. So, but it's an app, not a library. And that's okay. Let me get back to a couple comments here, so that you're back. Not about scale. This is about PayPal. Not about scalability. It's more about reliability and easy to use. Everything should be about easy to use. If it's not easy to use,
as long as easy to use, as long as it's doing what it's doing. Kind of one doesn't go without the other, right? But yes.
Yeah. So Stefan brings up by the way, Stefan, I saw your message to me, but I haven't gotten back to it yet. It looks like one day Kubernetes will be the new System D. I don't think it's one day. I think it is today. In some environments, not all.
Yeah, except not necessarily in a machine like singular, but
right.
If you remove in a machine from that sentence, I would agree 100%. A tool to orchestrate services.
Yep, that's okay. Waypoint. We've talked about Waypoint since 0.1. And they just did a big UI redesign. I haven't loaded it up yet. I do have it running on a Raspberry Pi 3. It actually runs. Not great, but it runs.
Is that because Raspberry Pi 3 works better than your laptop? The real reason?
Yeah. And it's because I've got a spare one. So yes, that's part of it. It only has 1 gig of RAM too, but it works. Also, we were talking about MicroShift as you left, right? If I could put this has been my use case for years, is think about bank branches. Not that people go to bank branches anymore, but I don't need a big server or a big server room there. I could get by with a good edge device, system on a chip. And if it ever fails, I just replace the system on the chip. I don't replace parts. I just replace the thing. And how much pain is it to boot a Raspberry Pi? It's a micro SD card about that big.
Second.
It's nothing, right? I think the system on a chip boards. It's going to be, or single boards, not system on chip. I'm confusing that with Apple. Sorry. But anyway, let's take a look at this UI redesign. It's pretty. It makes sense. So they've got the deployments now here on the left. It used to be like not so great. It was fine, but not so great. Right? It was fine, not great. And this is, to me, a more natural way to look at things. I like also how it shows the timeline here. That's really, really useful. And then what was it? What was that part about? Oh, the exec. I don't remember. There was something else here. But triggers was something else that was new. And I haven't loaded this one up yet to test it out. But triggers appear to be, it's listening on gRPC. Again, I don't know. I haven't played with it yet. But this is going to be one of the things I'm going to look at, I think, next weekend, because I've got stuff going on this weekend. Oh, wait, next weekend is tax weekend.
Okay. For the quarter.
For the year.
That's that quick? Okay.
For me, yeah, first weekend in February is usually when I do all my taxes. I gather everything then and send it to my accountant. Because he needs time, because my tax situation's complex.
That just proves how much we are more lazy in Spain, kind of like. We do taxes in June. That's the taxes month.
There's people in the U.S. that do their taxes in June and in December, and I'm not going to go there now. But anyway, this was a pretty big release, I think, compared to the past 3 releases. So I'm liking where Waypoint is right now.
Yeah, I just wrote a comment in my to-do list. Hey, we need to go through Waypoint again. It's been a while.
I think the last time you looked at it, it was either 0.1 or 0.2.
Yeah, 0.1 or 0.2. And I was kind of like, this is not worth the effort. But this and that kind of what's going on with Waypoint since more than a year ago, is shaping up. It's becoming interesting.
Yeah. So that's Waypoint. Wait, does Rosemary? No, Rosemary doesn't work on Waypoint. She works on Vault, I think.
Vault, yeah.
Okay. Rats. I'm sure she could hook us up. Well, it's Taylor. Taylor is her partner in crime. So we could probably get Taylor on to talk about Waypoint.
Oh, yeah. We should do that.
That'd be easy. Okay. This one I saw like 10 minutes before we started today. Mizu. which is actually a pretty cool name. Don't know the full backstory, but I could show all the other things, but this is what it is. It's an API traffic viewer for Kubernetes, enabling you to view all API communication between microservices. Okay. That was like, whatever. But then when I read this second line, think TCP dump and Wireshark reinvented for Kubernetes. That got my attention. Because I was using Wireshark the other day for some things I was trying to debug. And I love Wireshark. I'd forgotten how much I love Wireshark.
It's kind of like Jaeger-like.
Yeah, but lower.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Because for what I was having to debug, I had to get down to the wire. So
Exactly.
this looks really cool, I have to admit. Now, I haven't figured out exactly how to do it yet, because I just saw it before we started today. But how to run, find the pods you'd like to tap into your Kubernetes cluster. See, this is going to be interesting, because once the ephemeral containers come along, I'm wondering if they're going to refactor this to use that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm guessing that this is probably working in a similar way like other solutions. There is a constantly attached container that is doing something, right?
Yeah.
Traffic probably goes through it or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
I doubt that it would be something on and
Probably
off
not.
that you turn every hour.
Yeah. So looking at this, it's like run Mizu tap or tap pod name. So basically, you're reaching out and poking the pod, and sniffing that way. But then you can see traffic coming and going, tapping a specific pod, and it gives you a web interface, and then you can. And the interfaces here look pretty good, just looking at them.
And again, I haven't used it, but judging from commands and stuff, it seems it's not something meant to be running all the time in your cluster, like Jaeger, but rather, hey, I'm going to tap it now.
Oh yeah, it's available in your cluster all the time. Yes.
Yeah, but you kind of like start observing, say, I want to start
Correct.
observing right now, and then do it for half an hour and shut it down, something like that.
That's what it appears to be to me. And you can namespace restrict, agent filter. There's just all the typical stuff you would use with Wireshark to me. So
Nice.
but you do need a CLI. Okay, whatever. So could this have not been a plugin for kubectl? Maybe, right?
Could have.
Maybe.
Well, it's not.
But again, it's starting up a web server, so that's probably the why not. Or could you have done that with a plugin? You probably could have done it with a plugin, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Okay, that's true.
This is just starting port forwarding to that
Oh, that's true.
port.
That's right. Okay, so that's Mizu. Auto-saved. I thought it was interesting. It's not auto-saved, but it's auto-save-D.
Exactly.
So it's a daemon to auto-save progress on projects. So how often do you not, if you're in your IDE, do you have autosave turned on?
By autosave, yeah, you mean save literally. not
Every
push
5
to
minutes, right? Or every 1 minute or whatever, even if you're not doing anything.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. I know that I have developed kind of like a Command S habit that I'm clicking all the time. Kind of like, simply my brain is wired to press it all the time, even if I don't have to.
Mine is too. But anyway, I'm not going to dig into this. There is a video that you can watch to see how it works, and it explains it a lot better. They don't have a nice brew install or anything right now, so you'd still have to go through and download, but again, not a big deal. As long as I don't have to do go install, I don't care, right? That's like, I will never do that. I don't mind going to download something. And the setups are pretty straightforward. So, but like with Vim, right? You can't do an autosave in Vim, I don't think. Not like you could go into VS Code and set up an autosave. So think about that. That's the kind of use case that I think we're at Emacs, Vim, all the text editor, the text editors. HTTP Tanker is the last tool for today. And we'll go back and get the rest of your questions in just a minute. This is sort of like Postman. It's not listed here. But this is like Postman, but for the CLI. It's interesting how this goes through, because you start it up and then you start filling in the blanks. And then as you go through it, actually it stays in here. As it goes through, you can run the things, but then it saves the request for you as well. So if you're not using Postman or you don't want a UI and you want some way just to do it with text, this looks interesting. Again, this is one that I found today or yesterday. And it's just published a day or two ago.
It's very likely that it's going to be that I'm going to adopt it as a daily driver. You know, whenever you say terminal, you know how my brain works. Kind of, I want it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's like super young. I mean, super young. But it looks interesting to me. So
and it's probably not supposed to be the tool wide like Postman does many different things. No. It's extremely useful stuff like this. It's just probably some simple tool that replaces, in a way, CURL. I'm guessing, right? Which curl, I use all the time, kind of.
Curl, HTTP. Well, if you haven't used HTTP IE, I think you should. But then what this gives you beyond those two is you can easily create, manage, and execute the request. It's this manage. Yeah. That's the key part and differentiator from curl. Because you can do it with curl, but you're writing your own bash scripts that you have to save and remember where you put them and all the things. That's, I guess, where you'd use Switchboard to make sure anytime you put a file somewhere, it puts it in the right place. 2 quick video reviews from you, if I can find it. GitOps at massive scale with Fleet. That was 2 weeks ago.
Fleet is shaping to be absolutely awesome. And I'm saying shaping. It's not there yet, but I'm starting to like it a lot.
Okay. And then, just so we can get back to the other questions, how to secure Kubernetes clusters with Kubescape and Armo. Now, I will say, you can't really see it very well, but this is a 47-minute video.
It might be the longest video
I did not watch this one. I have not taken the time to watch this one. How long was the other? 39. The other one was 40 minutes, but it didn't feel 40.
Yeah, I need to start going back. I need to start reminding me, kind of make it shorter.
10 minutes. You need to go to 10 minutes.
I'm not sure I can do 10 minutes, but 20 minutes would be a nice goal.
Better.
I think. Because there is kind of like explaining, introduction, there is a demo, there is pros and cons. I'm not sure 10 minutes can fit, but 20.
Yeah. So anyway, check these videos out if you haven't seen it. These are cool. Let me go back over to the questions here real quick, just before we run out of time. What is our take on certifications? I'll go first.
Go.
Useless. Except in one case, if you're first starting out.
Yeah.
If you're 10 or 15 years into your career, if you enjoy taking tests, go for it, but not useful.
Yeah,
not useful.
If it's enjoyment, then the question is almost irrelevant. Do whatever you enjoy doing. But I think that it depends greatly how you interpret. I'm already working on K8s for close to 2 years. Whether that's I'm learning it for 2 years or I'm working in a company, real systems, production, blah, blah, I have 2 years of experience. The answer to that question depends whether it's A or B. 2 years is actually not much. So in either case, yeah, certification is good because it proves that you don't have experience, but you have something that proves that you are kind of on the path to being experienced in it. Yeah. Right. That's my take on it. It's similar like university, right? I mean, the university degree is extremely helpful for the first job, maybe second. I don't think that anybody asks you for university degree after 10 years of experience. I mean, they do probably because that's what people do, but that's not really what matters afterwards.
Yep. Moz has a question. I was thinking yesterday why there is a Kubernetes service. We can annotate our deployment pod, and Kubernetes will create the service automatically based on that annotation.
Okay. Because the reason why there is a service depends on how you understand Kubernetes. I understand Kubernetes as not being something that you should be using directly. It's a set of building blocks for other projects to extend, assemble, and so on and so forth. So yeah, a lot of things do not make sense in Kubernetes from end user perspective unless you consider it as a set of building blocks. Good example would be Knative, right? Knative will create ingress and service and stuff for you.
Okay. One more follow-up from Moz. A project similar to Mizu called Tap or some container tap or something like that. Okay. Sounds cool.
Need to check it out as well.
Raghu, thanks for Kubescape. Saw all of it and started implementing it at work. Wow.
Good.
Taking action. I like that.
Yeah.
Coin says, I like the long videos. There are way too many skin-deep videos on YouTube.
Yeah, that's a constant struggle, kind of like some people, some people like long, some people like short. I don't know.
I think
maybe I should.
There's places for
make both. Yeah.
There's places that, because I could like the videos I do for the day job, I could stretch to hours and spend time going through things. But a lot of times it's like, okay, what is this one piece that I can pull out that maybe I can use to compose into something else later on? So I have to think about what are the little pieces that strategically I'm creating smaller ones that at some point in the future, and you've done this, to where you're referencing back to other videos that you've done in the past that helps build out a more full story once you get to the end.
Exactly.
So that's where those 10 and 20-minute videos come in really nice. I think this like Waypoint. I'm already seeing a storyline developing with potentially, I don't know where it'd be, but with Waypoint and Argo CD.
Yeah.
It's a different model, but
let's say that kind of
pieces.
Story, Waypoint, and Argo CD. If we would start making it right now, that would mean, hey, we already have stories about Argo CD. Let's do a new story about Waypoint without Argo CD, and then you can do Waypoint Argo CD without really going into either of the two. Just focusing on combination.
Right. Okay. And Moz agrees with us. This is about certifications. Don't get them. Yeah. If you're newer to the thing and you're okay taking tests, that's fine. I used to take, like, back in the early 90s, I was taking all the Microsoft exams.
Oh.
Just because.
Oh, man. I did not know that. I also took them all. I had all. No, there was some kind of subscription, right?
The MDN, Microsoft Developer Network.
Yeah. And
yeah,
then
it's
exams.
I had my MCSE. I can't remember what the other ones were. I was always on the ops side. I was never on the developer side. I have never had to write one line of Visual Basic in my life. I've actually never worked with a real Microsoft language in my life.
But then kind of, I think that those Microsoft exams are one of the reasons why eventually, after quite a few years, I stopped taking those exams. It's kind of like, I think that once a year or every 2 years, a relatively short period of time, it's kind of, it's not valid anymore. Kind of like, you need to do it again. Come on. I cannot do 5 exams every year. I'm not kind of studying anymore.
Yeah, it works out really well when you are either by yourself or just have a significant other. Throw kids in the mix, it gets a lot harder.
I like the sentence or quote from our ex-colleague, CTO Koske, when they ask him, hey, did you do Jenkins exam? I made it. I made it. I'm not doing the exam. I use him as excuse for me not to do exam. Kind of like when Koske does it, I will do it as well. But yeah, depends really. They're very useful or not so much, depending on where you are.
And this comment is true. There's something about the CKA that makes me want it. Yeah, especially right now, right? Because you're at the. Where do you think we're at in the bell curve right now with Kubernetes? I still think we're going on the up towards the 50%. I don't think we've crested yet, but I think we're not early yet either.
No. We are definitely not early. We're getting to that top of the curve. Not long from now.
Yeah.
Few years maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? So we're almost at the top of the hour, and I have lots of more writing to do today. So
I thought you don't like writing.
I don't.
Okay.
And I have a lot more to do. No, it's interesting. I'm going through and doing some stuff with Selenium, and it's been years since I've done anything with Selenium. And I'm trying to come up with a way to do it in a sane manner, and it's not happening just yet. So
How much it changed?
it hasn't changed
I
at all.
haven't used Selenium like 5-10 years, something like that.
It had
Is it still
the basics of it are all still the same.
okay?
But back when I was working with it, good grief. The last time I was really working with it on a daily basis was 8 years ago. So it's still. I mean, obviously things have been updated, but the premise is still the same. So I'm just trying to figure out how can I use this and not make people pull their hair out. Right, and so that's what I'm trying to get it to that point, and that part of the story is a little more difficult. At least it may be just me catching up to it again.
Here's the question for you: are you writing Selenium stuff, or you're doing the there was that editor plugin for a browser that
Oh no, I'll
creates
write it.
the code for you?
No, I'll write it. My examples are going to be like I just did a video that hasn't shipped. I think it's next week on Playwright from Microsoft, which is another testing framework. And I did all that in using TypeScript, which was nice and easy. It was really straightforward, but it's not as clean. There's no TypeScript, at least not. I haven't gone through to test it yet, but there's nothing documented, at least from a Selenium perspective, of using just TypeScript. There's JavaScript, but not TypeScript.
Yeah.
So in theory, it should work, but I don't want to go down that path. So I'll probably end up just doing Java again, just because that's pretty normal, unfortunately. But Playwright was a lot of fun, and that's the reason why I decided the plan was to do Selenium and Playwright, right? I was going to cover them both, and I looked at Playwright. It's like, oh, I can get this done in about 2 days. And I look at Selenium. I'm going, and I kept looking at Selenium, and kept looking at Selenium. It's like, wait, what? I have to do all this just to, because I'm trying to keep the two videos at least comparable, right? Just from a how to use it. And Selenium's a lot more moving parts. I'll just put it that way. But it's a lot more powerful. But if you just need the basics, Playwright's really nice. If you need the extras, you got to go to Selenium. That is true. So I'm trying to simplify the Selenium experience to a Playwright experience.
So you want to get rid of the additional things that led you to Selenium in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Raghu, thanks for joining us live, by the way. And thanks for subscribing. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, do that. We typically do this weekly. And please forgive me if you don't go by Raghu, please forgive me, because if I try to say the rest of it, it's going to go really bad. We typically do it weekly. It's typically on Fridays at this time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. CET, except in the weeks to where we're traveling. And usually it's going to be Victor traveling and not me at this point still. So I'm not leaving the house, other than to go to the dentist today. There's nothing much more invasive than somebody sticking metal objects into your mouth. By the way, did you see my new shirt?
Quarkus, I made. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I forgot. I've put in pull request for that. Usually nothing huge, so I feel sort of cheap having the shirt, but I put in what I thought were some good documentation PRs. And again, if you don't know where to contribute to an open source project, documentation. Now, don't put in crappy documentation PRs, but
Exactly. And actually, many projects will even appreciate even more PRs of documentation than PRs of code itself. Simply, that's what is constantly missing in many projects. Everybody wants to contribute code, right?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you put in a PR of code, and if it's a well-governed project, going back to our earlier conversation today, if it's a well-governed project, you may never see that PR merged. But if you put in a PR for docs, as long as it's not something insane, it'll probably merge pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put in a PR for something that I do for the studio stuff. And I'm still waiting for the PR to be merged, but the last time they did a commit was 18 months ago. So it's probably just setting in their queue somewhere, if anybody's actually even looking at it. So, thank you for letting me know. Ragu is right, like the pizza sauce. Okay, thank you. I've worked with a few Ragus in the past, and it was like, okay, usually this is safe because it's the rest of your name that changes from person to person. But usually if I saw that first part, it's like, okay, good. And what was funny is there were 3 Ragus, and they talked amongst themselves and decided who was going to be 1, 2, and 3. It was sort of like the Three Stooges. They were really funny, so they had a really just an amazing sense of humor. So there was like, okay, just call us Larry, Moe, and Curly, right? It's like, yeah, but what if Curly leaves and we have to? Okay. Yeah. Did you ever see Three Stooges? At least a little.
Long time
A
ago.
little ago. Okay, yeah, I can't remember.
I don't remember it anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's call that good. We should be back next Friday because you're not traveling next week, right? And I know
traveling
I'm not.
anytime soon, as far as I know.
Okay. Well, I thought you had one more coming up. I thought you had 2 back to back.
Not in person. I have a bunch of stuff going on, but all
Virtually.
Online.
I thought you had 2 trips. I thought you had, or was that supposed to be last year, to where you were going to travel, come home for a week, and then go back?
Actually, I'm lying. Sunday I have in early March I have a trip. So.
Oh, okay. It's March. Okay. But wasn't there a time? Maybe it was last year, to where you were going to have to fly somewhere for a week, come home for a couple of days, and then fly back out to the same place again. Was that KubeCon? Was that the plan for KubeCon?
Yeah, that was KubeCon. That was
Okay.
our internal
That's what it was.
offsite, and then KubeCon, but
That's right.
both of them got cancelled.
Right.
So.
Okay. Anyway, for everybody that was here live with us today, thanks. By the way, before you leave, if you haven't clicked on thumbs up, do that before you leave. It's been nice having more people showing up live on Fridays.
Cool.
We're very thankful for that. And I guess everybody's sort of getting back into the work groove now, finally. Okay. Well, let me get all the stuff ready to go here, and let's see. Oh, by the way, if you haven't joined the Slack workspace, if you're, again, like Ragu, if you're brand new, there's a Slack workspace, and the link for that Slack workspace is down in the description. So you can click on that and join the Slack workspace, and everybody's over there as well. So, all right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us live today, and we will talk to you again next week. Have a great weekend.